Okay.
Okay, so, oh my gosh, look at that. I literally just hit record. Ah, good timing. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to flip a hostess into a stylist, and we'll get through that quick, and then we can touch on how to get your stylist launch strong. Kind of just like with my 5 steps to sponsoring over the course of like sponsoring all those people, I was like, okay, I need to figure out like a concise way to get these girls launch strong. So I have like a 3-call system split up, and it's super like I can go through it like really quick and easy. So Courtney, first, honestly, I want to hear about how things went with your hostess new stylist. Now, she was a stylist before, so that makes a little bit of a difference. But how long ago, like how long has it been since she's been a stylist? Because I bet things have changed quite a bit.
He has not been active since 2016.
Okay, so things have changed a lot since she was a stylist. Clothes, way more bags.
I'm totally bundled up.
Glasses. You what?
Suddenly, I'm totally bundled up right now because suddenly tonight I'm like frozen. So I'm intending to look like a hobbit.
You're fine. Well, my leggings have walruses on them. I don't know
I'm
if you
so jealous of your Sherpa sweater. I still need to go to Express and get that.
Where do you get all these great leggings from, Amy? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
These are LuLaRoe, and I like over the years I've done so many vendor events with LuLaRoe gals that I really like their leggings, and I wear them as pajamas, so I don't give a shit what they look like. So I always ask like, what leggings have you had since you got started that you want to get rid of? And they give them to me for like $5. So I have like, these are, I don't know, can you even tell that they're walruses? Oh, like there's a walrus.
Oh my God.
Those are so ugly.
They're so hideous. I don't even
They're
they're
so
so
ugly.
comfy. I don't
But
care.
they feel like butter, which is what they always say. They feel like butter.
Okay, so Courtney, I want to hear about your new stylist that you flipped and how those conversations went as quickly as you can.
So the first Sunday of this month, what was it, like 2 weeks ago yesterday, I had an online show for a girlfriend of mine, and the first people, or as gals were ordering, oh my God, I have the best husband in the world. He just brought me to my bed a glass of wine.
Wow. Richard, do you deliver to Eugene?
Yeah.
Take a while.
You hear him?
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
Nice. Can we get a slow clap for the husband?
What?
Slow clap for the husband. Okay.
So as gals were ordering, I don't know if we had started this group or if Kara and I were just talking about, like, I want to just like make all the money this month or something. But so it was in my brain already that like I wanted to like go for something. So as gals were ordering, I was reaching out to them like right away and, you know, thanking them for their order in private messages and saying like, you should be my next hostess, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I got the gal Stella, who had a show last week, and Kelly. And she said, like, sure, yeah, it's kind of iffy when we were looking at, but she wanted to do it. Then throughout the rest of the show, she kept commenting and liking on posts. And so I reached out to her again and I said, you know, you seem to be liking everything that I'm posting. You should be a stylist and stop the stuff for free. And then you could do your own show. I'll help you. And then you can get the commission and the product credit. And then she was like, I used to do it in the past, you know, like maybe. And then it was kind of like lukewarm for like a week. And then I just kept kind of talking to her and told her that there's no, you know, minimums, no monthly minimums, no quotas, anything like that. And that, you know, for the $199 you get $350 plus the $150 of favorites or whatever. And that was it. And I just kind of stayed on her. I wasn't super pushy, but like every 2 or 3 days or so, I'd check in a PM. And then today, they're up in Tahoe for a early Thanksgiving with family. And I told her, like, your show is next Sunday. We need to get this going so it's in your system so you can start sharing the link and earning all the goods from it. And here we are.
I will say too, Courtney is really good with following up. and just like keeping that conversation going with, again, not sounding like pushy or anything like that, because every time I would talk to Courtney, she'd be like, okay, and I need to follow up with so-and-so, and I need to follow up with so-and-so, and I need to follow up with so-and-so. And then I talked to her a few days later and she'd be like, okay, so I messaged so-and-so, I'm going to follow up again. So like she was doing the follow up, like she was putting in the work to keep the conversation going so that like kind of didn't die out, which is, I think, is super important.
Yeah. Courtney, do you feel like there was like a turning point with her as far as like what you were saying or when you were reaching out to her or anything? Or was it just like your persistence of following up and saying like, you should do this, that really pushed her over to sign up?
I think because I think I kind of got lucky in the sense that she used to be a stylist. So she already has had interest, in the past, and she already loves the brand. But when I explained to her, like I have a full-time job and I have a kid and I just really like this stuff and I do however many or as few shows as I want for fun, she started kind of perking up a little bit more, realizing that, she doesn't need to devote more time than she has to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then explained to her, no minimums, there's no, special thing about it really. Besides just putting in what time and what effort you want into it to get back, the return. And that was really it.
So like thinking back to what we talked about last week and yesterday with you, Erica, like the sponsoring tips, like you asked her, like you followed up, you kept it really simple, you figured out like what she wanted out of it, and like that's what you talked about. Like that's it.
Oh yeah, no, that was really big too. Is I figured out her why, like
Yeah.
what's exciting to her, and she said, like I said, what's your goal, like what would you want out of it? And she said she just wants to support her jewelry habit.
Which I think a lot of people start off like that. And so then when we say something to them about like, oh my gosh, well, you should totally be a stylist, to them, it sounds like this really big commitment. And like, it doesn't have to be. Like, it really can just feed your fashion fix. Like, you can do 1 to 2 trunk shows a month, at least qualify every month, and get some jewelry every line launch and every couple months, and like really just feed that side of it. So doing that and asking her like, well, what has you interested in this is like super helpful. So one of the biggest things, just kind of like this all kind of tailors back into like our 5 sponsoring tips, but really tailoring it to your hostesses that you've already booked trunk shows for. This is something that they don't realize is they've already done the hard part. Like the hard part is booking a trunk show. Like the hard part is getting a hostess to, invite her girlfriends over so you can share the SU joy with them. So them already having a trunk show in the system is kind of like, that's kind of the hardest part. All they have to do is just sign up. Like that's the super easy part of this. So, but they don't know that side of it because they know nothing. And that's something that we have to remember with hostesses and brand new stylists is they literally know nothing. They just want us to tell them. So if we make it sound like this is totally normal, they're going to think it's totally normal. So if we, I try with every single hostess, no matter who the hostess is, because you never know. My battery is running low. My computer's plugged in. What do you mean my battery is low? Oh, there we go. With every single hostess, like you have no idea what they're needing or looking for, and just offering it to every single hostess. And I try to do that. I definitely am not the best at it because as just like with everything, like I chicken out and sometimes I tell myself stories about the hostess. But when I do offer it, more often than not, they come back with like, you know what, I haven't thought about it, but I totally will. Or like, I totally have thought about it and I like would love to chat with you more. But just dropping those hints, this is like where that drop, like plant the seed and walk away is, I feel like comes in like handy the most is with our hostesses, because you're already doing that hostess coaching and you're already talking to her consistently leading up to that show. So always putting in those tiny little seeds, and it's literally just the smallest comment like, girl, you are already doing my job for me. You should be doing this show. I shouldn't be doing the show for you. You should be doing the show, but we'll talk about that later. Like that's kind of my go-to phrase is like when I tell her, you know, you need to invite 40 to get 10. And when she actually invites 40 and like 10 people have RSVP'd yes, I will say to her like, dude, you're doing my job for me. Like this is 100% what my job is. Like you should be doing this show. This should be your launch show. But you know what? We'll talk about that later. And just kind of like continuing to plant those little seeds and then not saying anything else about it and not letting her respond. That's kind of the biggest thing that I found is not letting her respond to you. Cause like we talked about last night, Erica, and like we talked about last week, is if you give them time to respond, the answer is probably going to be no. But if you don't let them respond, then they have to actually think about it. So that's, I feel like, is a really big key is kind of like planting that seed, dropping that hint, and like cutting them off before they can tell you an answer. Just be like, oh, well, you know what? We're going to talk about that later. Let's talk about, you know, your girlfriends that are coming. Like, who are you excited that's coming? Who's going to be the big jewelry whore? Who's going to be the one that doesn't want to talk to me? Like, who's going to be the one that's going to be on a budget? Who's going to be the one that's going to love all the state? Like, asking her those questions and not letting her answer you about being a stylist. So really planting the seed and walking away. And as you're kind of planting those seeds, there is nothing like you could sign up right now and do a show in 10 minutes. So they could potentially sign up right before their show, like hours, like 20 minutes before it starts. They could sign up the day before. So there is nothing wrong with kind of like waiting until right before the show. I like to kind of really hit it hard the day before the show. Like I've already probably planted the seed once or twice, maybe 3 times, depending on how much we've talked about it and how I met them and how I know them. But the day before, I feel like is when I get the best response from people. When it's like, okay, you know, your show's tomorrow. I've made a couple comments about you being a stylist. Like, what do you think? Like, this could totally be your lunch show. Like, all you have to do, like, you can sign up today. I will still come tomorrow. I'll still like do everything, show you exactly how it is to run a show. And you could kind of like learn on the job. What do you think? And asking them then and seeing what their real answer is. Because then they might be like, you know what? I so appreciate the couple like comments that you've made. I think it's sweet that you think I'd be a great stylist. I'm just not interested for XYZ. Or maybe they have like a legit concern. And just like with the sponsoring conversations that we were talking about yesterday, like if they have a legit concern, then you can kind of talk them through it. And let's say, I think a lot of times, so we drop those hints, make those comments, and then really like formally ask them like, okay, seriously though, let's spill the tea. Like, have you thought about being a stylist? Like, I think you would be great. We would have so much fun doing this together. Like, what do you say? This could be your launch show. And let's say she's like, you know what? I don't think now's the right time. I'm not really sure. Like, let's have my show and we'll see how it does. Like, I get that response a lot. And that's probably a response that you guys get a lot. Like, well, let's see how it does. Let's see if my friends like this stuff, which part of me like cringes because I'm like, but if we do this and you have the show and you're the hostess, it's going to be harder for you to launch afterwards. But that's not really the case. I kind of always think about that. But there are always so many people that don't come to her show that probably would shop or would probably come to a second show. So there's nothing wrong with if she says no or not right now or she's not really sure and you have the show and you do the show for her and she's the hostess. And then afterwards you say like, oh my gosh, I had so much fun. What'd you think? Like, do you see yourself doing this? And she could then be like, you know what? I totally do. Like, I could totally see myself being a stylist. I want to do this. You can still sign her up and have a really strong launch because like I said, there was probably like if you guys did everything the way we should, like there was probably at least 30 people that couldn't come to the show or that didn't show up or that didn't come to the show. You can re-invite those 30 people to her launch show. And there's probably an additional like 30 to 50 people that she would want to invite to a launch show that she probably didn't invite to just like her regular girls' night out. So don't be afraid to like push hard after the style session. Like if she had so much fun and if she was a natural styling her friends and she like, I can't even tell you how many shows I've gone to where the hostess like picks up the iPad and the hostess is doing the orders. And I'm like, why am I even here? And they're like, what? And I'm like, look at that's my job. Like that's literally my job at the show is holding the iPad and like putting in the orders and like just giving my opinion on what I think looks cute on you and like asking your friends what they think looks cute on you. And I'll ask her friends like, don't you guys think she should do this? So a lot of times at shows when I say that, a lot of their friends are like, oh my gosh, you totally should. Like, Carrie, you should totally be so good. I'll host your first show. Like that happens a lot. And I think sometimes if they don't sign up before the show, we get a little worried about like, well, she just had a show. Like I don't want to, now I can't sign her up because she just had a show and we can't do it again. you can 100% do it again, because if you're talking about her being a stylist at the show and all of her friends are being super supportive and really excited about her starting up and like saying that they'll host, like book that and like say, okay, you know what? Like orders are cut off. Like she's signing up right now. All the rest of the orders from tonight are going to go under her. Like Erica, you're going to be her first hostess. Like get out your calendars, figure out in the next like 10 days when you can do this. Like you can totally do that. So I think, at least for me, sometimes if I don't get them signed up before their show, I get about talking to them like after the fact and getting them to sign up afterwards. Does that make sense? How does that feel to you guys?
Two things I want. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Erica.
No, I was just saying that makes sense.
Two things I was going to say too is you can kind of read the situation. I always have paper order forms. Erica, I'm sure you remember. Right before I signed Erica up, she came to a show at my house that I did. And she was like, I just threw it out there because she was getting close to $199. And I said, like, I think your order was like 150 or something. And I just kind of threw it out there like, you're getting 150. Like, have you ever thought about doing something like this? And we were kind of chatting about it. And I could tell she like wasn't a no and she wasn't a yes. And so I didn't take her order that night. I said, I'm going to do this on paper order forms. And like, I want you to think about it and like, let's give it a day or two and like, see if you think this could work. And then we ended up chatting about it, whatever, and she ended up signing up. But just to say, like, it's good to take paper order forms to shows for that particular reason, because maybe there's somebody there that maybe it's not the hostess, but it's a customer who like might be interested. And you can do something like that where you're like, you know, I don't want to pressure you right now. Let's do a paper order form. I'm not going to charge you tonight. And we can like maybe call to like talk tomorrow and like just kind of see what you think. Because I also feel like it makes them understand, like, I don't just want your money. Like, I could just take your money and then sign you up, but like, I don't want that, you know? And then second, if you have a hostess and you can read the situation, if you have a hostess that you feel like, okay, I think she really would want to do this if this was successful, and that really is her biggest hesitation, paper order form her customers and tell her like, okay, well, I'm going to check everybody out by paper order forms and let's tally this up at the end of the night and like, let's see how much money you would make if these were your orders. And like, maybe it's a purple dot show or maybe it's super close to a purple dot show. And then you can say like, listen, if you could collect 1 or 2 more orders, you'd make back your $250 with just this show. So like, that's always an option. And then shoot, there was one other thing I was going to say, paper order forms at the show.
And that's something that I tell them at the beginning of the show. If they're a little wishy-washy about being a stylist, I'll say like, you know what? I'm going to do paper order forms tonight. I'm not going to take anybody's money right this second. And I'm going to tell them like, okay, Kara's thinking about being a stylist, so we're going to do paper order forms. And sometimes when you do that, that kind of gives the hostess the push that she needs, because her friends will be like, oh my God, you should totally sign up. Like, why didn't you sign up already? So yeah.
Right. And I was going to say, and then it's also super, super important when you have a host that's like kind of on the fence like that, talk to everybody about booking. Because if you can already line up a show or two for her, you've got these paper order forms, or maybe not, like maybe you've processed the orders because she was like not into it and you decided to, but like if you like are talking, let's say 1 or 2 or 3 of her friends and you're like, listen, I think at least 1 or 2 of these girls are going to host for you. Like, here's your first shows. Like, you don't even have to worry about like having your own if that's a hesitation of hers. Like, well, I just hosted this and I don't know. Okay, well, Susie and Sarah both said they would host for me. They could be your first 2 shows. So making sure you're talking to everybody about booking, so you kind of have that like in your like toolbox when you go to chat with her after the show.
Carrie, you've had success with that in the last couple months with really like booking in tight with the girls at the show and then letting that hostess know afterwards, like, okay, here's the deal. I know you're a little iffy about being a stylist. I have tentatively booked 3 shows from your friends. If you were to sign up as a stylist, those 3 shows would become yours. You would already have 3 shows on the books. And sometimes that is really helpful too, because again, like Kara has said at the time, and it rings so true. A lot of girls are really hesitant to sign up because they think they're going to fail. They think they're not going to be successful, and they think their friends aren't going to support them, which we all know, like, there's going to be a handful of friends that aren't going to support you, and that's totally fine. We get over it. But if you're able to get some bookings from those girls and tell them, like, you know, Kara's kind of thinking about signing up, so let's talk about doing a show, and then we'll tell her, so then she can be your stylist. Like, how great would that be? So,
yep.
Any other questions you want to add?
Yep, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say 3 of the last 6 girls I've signed up was from that. From me talking, they were hostesses for me, and they didn't want to sign up before, and then we had their show, and their show was either successful or not. Like, some of their shows like barely qualified, and I was still like, are you sure? but I booked 1 to 3 shows from each of their shows. And I told them, like, listen, your mom has already booked a show with me. Like, that could be yours. Or like this one gal, I'm like, your sister, your mom, and your mother-in-law have all booked shows with me. I'm like, you know, so I think it's super important to have, Courtney and I have talked about this too. It is so important to have your personal trunk show pipeline lined up because of that. Because like this month alone, I handed over 6 shows that I already had booked from girls that I signed up at the end of last month. But because I had like another 8 on my books already, I was like, here, take these shows, like you can have them. And I didn't feel like, oh, but I need them because I don't have anything else on my plate and I don't want to give the show up because I need it to qualify, you know? So, which is like a total another thing, but just keeping your personal trunk show pipeline kind of like backed up so that if you do need to give away, and 6 is probably not like more than normal. I mean, you know, probably like 1 to 2. But it just makes it a really easy thing for your hostess when that's a hesitation of hers.
How does that sound, you guys? I mean, Courtney, you kind of already just did all this, but does that feel like something you could do with maybe like, because I think I talked about this in the Marco Polo, like between you two and Jordan, you guys have 11 shows left. Like 11, like think about if each of you flipped 2 of those hostesses, like seriously.
Because I flipped my hostess, so I only have
Okay, so there's 10 shows left between the 2 of you. Like I mean, honestly, if just each of you flipped 1 hostess and that was $1,000 trunk show, like there's a 3rd leg. So I'm gonna challenge you guys, like go through your trunk shows that you have left, and I want you to talk to every hostess about being a stylist. Like don't hold back. Just like we talked about in the sponsoring tips, like you have to offer it to everyone. If you don't offer it to everyone, like you're not going to sponsor. So seriously, like, and tell them like we have this great like seasonal style, like you can be a seasonal stylist. Like this can be your launch show. All your friends are going to be shopping anyway. Like they already have it booked. The hard part's already done. All you have to do, like you're probably going to spend $199 anyway with your half offs. So now you can spend $199. You basically get $500 in jewelry. And you'll have your launch show booked where we're going to work really hard to get you 200 more product credit. And you're going to get 50 back. Like what do you think? So really, I really want to challenge you guys to talk to every single hostess you guys have, know who they are. Like my hostess that I have last week, she's hosted for me twice before. I've asked her every single time. It's a hard no every single time. And I did it again. Like I asked her again and I said like, okay, I know it was a no last time, but I have to ask you again. Like, are you interested in being a stylist? And she's like, you're so funny. She's like, no, I just like hosting. I'm like, okay, but I got to ask because you never know if that changes. Like the amount of people that I get hard no's from that I still go back to and ask about hosting or ask about being a sponsor or ask about being a stylist. Almost like no one has got mad at me yet. They all say like, you're so sweet for asking me again, but I'm still not interested. Like, I really appreciate it. Because if they change their mind, they're not going to tell you. Like they're like, let's say you ask them to be a stylist and like, you know what? No, it's really not for me. And let's say like 6 months down the road, like maybe something changes in their life. Maybe something financial changes. Maybe they are like really realizing that they need an outlet. They're not going to come back to you and be like, remember when I told you no?
Courtney,
is that you? Like, remember when I told you no? It's actually a yes now. Like, no one is going to come back and be like, I was wrong. Now I want to do this. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, you have to ask them again. So,
like, how many times did I pester you? Like, literally every time we talked, I was like, you should just be a stylist. And she was like, no, I can't. I'm like, you should just be a stylist. No, I can't. You should just be a stylist. No, I can't. And then maybe like the 10 millionth time she was like, I'm actually thinking about it this time.
Okay, so Courtney, what changed? So why was it a no? Really quick, why was it a no?
It was a no at first because I have my full-time job, I have an Etsy shop, and I sold Senogen slip scents.
Okay.
And my plate was full.
Okay, so then why did you switch and make it a yes?
Because I fell more in love with the Stella products than the Senogen's products.
And
so
me.
You never know. And me.
It was all
Me too. No, I'm just kidding. You're like, I didn't know you.
I would like to thank Kara. Well, it was funny because then I was like, are we friends now? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, all right.
I'm like, you're going to be sick of me because I'm going to be Marco Poloing you every 5 seconds asking how you're doing.
It was the best day of my life when Kara said she'd be a stylist because I was like, oh my God, she's going to be my friend. Kara always going to be my friend, you guys. You don't even know. I feel so cool. Okay, Okay, so any more questions about that, or you want me to jump into like new stylist training stuff? Erica, you have any questions about that? Does that feel good?
Yeah.
Feel like you got good tips going into your next like 4 or 5 shows that you have?
Yes.
Okay, you're gonna do it. You're gonna ask them all. Every single one.
Gonna ask them all.
Every single one.
Every single
Okay.
one.
Okay, so just like with my 5 sponsoring tips, because I sponsored like last year between like January and March, I sponsored and Jumpstart qualified more people in those 3 months than I did in the entire year of 2016. So I had to like really hone in on like, okay, how do I get these people on strong? How do I get them to like do this successfully? And like, what is something really easy that I can like duplicate and share and just like make it really simple to do it every single time. So I have a 3 phone call system / meet in person on how to get them lunch strong. So the first phone call, it's ideally face-to-face. Obviously, we sponsor people all over the country and the world, so you can't always meet with them face-to-face. But if they live in your area, this number 1 thing, it should be in person and it should be within 48 hours of them signing up. So if they sign up tonight, you want to meet with them, well, Thursday's Thanksgiving, so that's not ideal. But you want to meet with them by like Thursday at the latest. Does that make sense? So like you have kind of like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Because what I found is if you wait too long after they sign up, they get unexcited. Like in the early stages of it, they get really, really excited. And so you want to start this soon. And honestly, I usually do this like while they're signing up. Like I'm talking to them while they're signing up and I'm like doing this part of it. So ideally face-to-face within the first 48 hours. And I have this all like written down. So if you guys want me to email this to you, I can email it to you as well. Okay, so the first thing I like to talk about is ordering her jewelry. Courtney, are you okay over there?
My wine delivery boy is doing like a funny strip tease.
Oh, you got to flip the camera around. You got to show the rest of us what's going on the other side of that.
He's just trying to ruin this recording for you, Amy, and I think he succeeded. So we apologize.
You know what? It's recording, so now he has to do it on camera. He's like, oh, I don't like this girl.
Gone.
Oh my God. Okay, so the first thing I always do is I send an email, and I think Kara has a copy of this email, and she's probably tweaked it a little bit, and you guys probably both got the email when you first signed up. But again, like we can forward it to you with all the attachments and everything, but I send her this email that's basically like a welcome to Stella and Dot. And one of the things that I say in there is talking about ordering her jewelry. And because we always have so many things that are being retired, I always really want them to like talk to me before they order stuff, because I never want people to like order a bunch of stuff that's going to be retired and in a couple weeks, you know, they're not going to be able to order it. And that also kind of gives me an idea of what they want to do with this. So if I have a stylist and they're brand new and they've just signed up and I'm talking to them about what jewelry they're going to order, and I tell them like, okay, well, let me know before you order it because a bunch of stuff's being retired and I would hate for you to have retired stuff on your tray, so let me know beforehand. If they tell me like, oh, I don't really care, that's like red flag that they're a kidnapper. So that also kind of like is an instant, like it shows you kind of like what they're going to do with this. So I have her tell me and like help her order a jewelry and we figure out what she's going to get. And then I always tell her it's a really good idea to announce their business on social media. I am a really big proponent of like work your business on social media authentically. So if you are not active on social media, don't sign up for Stella and Dot and then all of a sudden start posting 100 things a day about Stella and Dot. It's going to seem ingenuine. It's going to seem fake. It's going to seem salesy, and her friends and customers are not going to like it. So if they are not active on social media, then I would probably not announce it on social media. Or maybe just announce it and say like, I'm really excited for this just like fun jewelry side business or like getting my jewelry fixed with Stella and Dot, like a little bit more to come. But if they're super active on social media or just like normal, then definitely post something about like starting their business. I always say include like a picture of yourself or a picture of you and your family, because then that kind of like shows, you know, a personal side of you while you've signed up to do Stella and Dot. But again, if they're not active on social media at all, there's almost 10 minutes. There's almost like nothing I hate more than someone that's never on social media and then they sign up for something and all of a sudden I'm just blasted with their business all over the place. Does that bug you guys? Is that just me? Sometimes I feel like it's just me.
Said that.
What?
I almost said a brand name when you said that.
Yeah. There's a lot of friends that I have that like never post anything on social media. Like maybe once a month they post a cute picture of their kids and then they sign up for something. And now that is all I see. And it just doesn't seem authentic to me. That's just me personally. So announce their business on social media, and then really important, book their launch show. I always like to tell them, like, as soon as you order your jewelry and it ships, track the shipping and then book your trunk show around when it is going to get here. I remember when I booked my launch show, my jewelry was set to arrive on Monday. I booked my launch show for Tuesday night. So I had like literally one day to kind of plan it and figure out how I wanted to display it. And then I had my launch show and it kind of worked out perfect. So booking her launch show, I always like to tell them, book your launch show first before you do trunk shows with any friends, because most likely your friends have never shopped Still and Dot before and they don't really know anything about it. So they're a little hesitant to host and it doesn't seem as exciting to them. If you host your own show first and invite everybody to come see it, once they see it, then they'll get excited and then they will want to host their own show. I know for me, it was kind of hard in the beginning because there was not really any Still and Dot in Eugene. And so I hosted my own show and I invited like 50 people and I think like 5 people came. It was like a fairly good show because once they came and they saw all the stuff, they loved it. But I had a hard time booking after that because people were like, well, I don't know what this is. Like, are you Stella? Like, do you make this? Like, how does this work? And so it took me a little bit to kind of like get people excited about Still and Dot, and had a lot of repeat customers in the beginning. But doing your own show first and having everybody come see it and get excited about it and then having them book is a much better way to go about it. And so with that, I'm also working with them on like making their who do you know list. So I always use the Frank list. Like if they are like, I just don't know that many people, I'm like, okay, let's do a Frank list. Friends, relatives, acquaintances, neighbors, and kids / colleagues, which I know colleagues doesn't start with K, but like thinking about all those different groups of people and who you can reach out to in those different groups to really expand your bookings. Because even for myself, like when I go to host something at my house, I can instantly come up with 20 names. And then I'm like, I don't know anybody else. Then I'm like, yes, I do. I need to sit down and think about like, okay, Max's preschool, like his friends from preschool, their moms, like, okay, there's like 20 people right there that I can invite. I'm not super close friends with them. I know them well enough. I have their phone numbers. If I invite them to something, they'll honestly probably come because they know I'm going to have mimosas and kids aren't welcome. So they'll come. But like really kind of like thinking outside those boxes and like, okay, who, like colleagues, okay, well, I don't have a full-time job. Well, my husband does. Like, who does my husband work with? And like girlfriends and wives that I can think of to invite. So really kind of like helping her walk through that who do you know list and stepping outside to really build that list and make it huge, because when you're just starting out, you need as many people as possible. And then that first meeting, I always end with their why. Even though I probably know their why and I probably know why they're signing up to do this, I always like to end with it because, again, this is like new stylist training. It's not super fun. It can seem a little boring, like, God, I signed up to do the Still and Dot thing and now she's like making me write out a list of all these people. So I always like to end with like, okay, now remind me again what your why is with Still and Dot. Like, why are you excited about it? Because that's going to get her re-excited about it. It's going to get her re-excited about making her who do you know list, whether it's a financial gain, whether it's just like, I just want to get out of the house. Like, I'm just looking forward to getting out of the house, maybe like one night a month and like getting together with some girlfriends. Like, that's all I really want. So I always like to end with their why and like what, like have her, especially if it's in person, like have her see me write it down. So she sees that I'm paying attention as to like why she wants to do this and showing her that it's important to me too. So call number 2 it can definitely be a phone call since you just met with her in person. This can for sure be a phone call. And this is 2 to 3 days later. And one of the things I really try hard with each of these meetings is keeping them under a half an hour. It's super hard with that first one, especially if you meet in person, because it can get lengthy. You can get off on tangents and catch up and talk about other stuff. But especially when you're on the phone, I try really hard to keep it under 30 minutes because A, it seems duplicatable and it doesn't seem overwhelming and like this really intense training of like, oh my God, I talked to this girl on the phone for like 2 hours. Like, is it going to be like this every time I talk to her? So I try, and I tell them from the beginning, like, I got a lot of stuff going on tonight. I really want to make this quick. I know you're busy too. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I literally have 2 things I want to go over with you. And that's it. And that has really, I think, helped people getting excited and like staying excited about it because it doesn't seem like a huge commitment. So 2 to 3 days later, this is 2 to 3 days after this last meeting. So the first meeting is 48 hours after they signed up. This is 2 to 3 days later. So this is maybe like 5 days after she has signed up. Basically, what I'm talking about in this one is I'm focusing on coaching her to overcome objections, because at this point, she's probably gotten a couple no's. She's probably had a couple of her friends be like, I don't want to host for you. This is weird. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Or like, no, I can't come. Sorry. Or like, maybe she's sending out links for people to shop online and they're just saying no. And now she's getting discouraged. And as we know, that's totally normal. Sometimes I like challenge myself to get 100 no's. Like, I can't put down the phone until I get 100 of them. But as a new stylist, that is, I mean, you guys probably remember, it seems really discouraging, and it makes you like kind of sad about like, oh my God, nobody's going to support me. So I'm really talking to her about overcoming objections. I'm talking to her about the feel, felt, found method. And I'm like, you probably remember me telling you this feel, felt, found. And she's like, oh my gosh, I totally do. And it really worked. You made me feel so much better. And I'm like, it is a method and it's not lies, but it like really helps people feel better about like feel, felt, found. So like if your objection is, I don't know enough people. So like I reach out to you about hosting a show and you're like, oh, I just don't know enough people. That's a soft no. Like that's not a hard no. So I'm going to feel, felt, found. Oh my gosh, I totally understand how you feel. I have so many hostesses that feel that same way too. You know what? What I have found is if I sit down with you and make a list, I bet you we can come up with like 20 people to invite. If we do that together, how does that sound to you? Are you interested in trying then? So I like feel you. Others have felt that same way too. And what I have found to like help you and help others get over that is this. Are you still interested? And that works with everything. I don't know enough people. I don't have any money. My friends don't have any money. My house is too small. I don't have enough time. Like you can feel, felt, found till the cows come home. So I'm talking to her about feel, felt, found. We're working through those objections, like talking to her about the difference between a hard no and a soft no. Like 90% of no's are soft no's. Like you'll get those the hard no's every once in a while, and that's totally fine. But like kind of working through those. That's honestly all I'm talking about in that second phone call, because that usually takes up a good amount of time, like going through the feel, felt, found and talking to her like, so have you gotten any no's yet? And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I've gotten so many no's. And like reassuring her like, this is totally normal. This happens all the time. Like, this is how we're going to work through this. So call number 3, I like to try to do this one in person if I can, but obviously if they don't live here, I can't. Okay, I got 2 minutes. I like to do this one at the beginning of the second week of her quick start. I have probably talked to her a bunch in between each of these meetings. I'm hoping that you're talking to her a bunch in between these meetings, but these are like our scheduled, like I tell her like, okay, we're going to schedule this phone call. Like I'm going to talk to you on this date. So this is just the last one. It's the beginning of the second week of her quick start. And this is when I'm going to talk to her about the anatomy of a trunk show. If she's never been to a trunk show before, she probably doesn't really know how it works. If her launch show, if she hasn't had it yet, she probably is wanting help, like working through it. So I'm going to talk to her about the anatomy of a trunk show. Maybe I'll send her like the faux trunk show or the group hello examples in the lounge. I'm going to talk about the group hello and go over like what I talk about in a group hello and like tell her why it's important, even if it's with your girlfriends, especially in your first show. It's a really good to be like, okay, I'm just starting out, I'm practicing, so I need your guys' tips on how bad this sounds and what I need to work on and like what I need to say more of and what I need to say less of. And then I'm talking to her about booking trunk shows at trunk shows and how much easier that is. So then you don't have to sit down and do all these reach outs and like do all these like cold calling. Okay, I have 1 minute. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is I'm actually going to start digging into her jump start between day 30 and day 60. So up until this point, I've really only talked about the quick start. I've really only talked to her about the first 30 days. We're focusing on getting 10 orders or selling 1,000 or having 2 to 3 trunk shows or however you want to word it to her. But on this third phone call at the beginning of the second week of her quick start, I'm now talking about like life after her quick start and what's going to happen between day 30 and day 60. And then on that call, I really like to end with her why again. So, okay, I think we have like 30 seconds. That's it. So those are like the 3 phone calls. Do you guys have any really quick questions? Is that helpful? Do you want me to email that to you guys?
Yeah.
The
Okay.
one thing I wanted to say too, which I get all the time, I'll try to talk super fast with new stylists, is you're in the first phone call and they're like, how do I cancel an order? How do I book a show? It's okay to say,